Welcome back, Sebastian here. So time for my review for the 2024 Qatar Grand Prix. So pretty exciting race, a lot of chaos, a lot of action. I think some controversy as well. There was definitely some moments I think people will have quite a few heated discussions about online. But nonetheless, let's get started. So opening lap, of course, started with Russell on pole, Verstappen P2. Pretty much all drivers were starting on the medium tires except for Hulkenberg, who opted to start on the hard tire, of course, starting well down the order. I think P17, P18 on the starting grid after a poor qualifying session. So we get to the first corner, and I think, like many expected, a very angry, probably quite frustrated Verstappen after I think receiving that probably unjustified one place grid penalty, which meant it felt more than anything like it was just supposed to get Verstappen off pole because for whatever reason, as if it was a personal indictment on him. As there's been plenty of examples in recent races where in that exact situation between Russell and Verstappen where, it would just be a reprimand and not an actual grid drop. So so opening lap, Verstappen, good start. He goes up the inside of Russell, gets past him, but Norris also on the inside there. So he basically had three wide almost going into that first corner. So very, very close between the three of them, but Verstappen was the one who came out on top in that battle. Keeps the lead into turn one, Norris P2 and Russell P3. We would have contact further back as at turn one, Hulkenberg, Colapinto, and Ocon all kind of made contact simultaneously almost. Hulkenberg looked like something happened to his car. He basically just really understeered going into the first corner to hit Ocon, and then Ocon hit Colapinto. So it was kind of a chain reaction. No penalty for any of that for that incident. So not sure if the stewards were basically just judging it as an opening lap kind of mishap. But nonetheless, Colapinto and Ocon were both out and the safety car was brought out. However, we're not even done with the action on the first lap as Albon and Stroll also came together at turn 3, turn 4, I believe it was. Stroll just kind of pushed Albon way out wide. Contact there, and Stroll was given a 10-second penalty for that move. And just to round things off, as if the first lap couldn't get more hectic than it already was, Hamilton was noted for a false start, and he came over the radio right away, as we saw in the replay, saying, "Oh yeah, sorry about that." So not a great race from Hamilton. A lot of things going wrong. There are some of them his fault, some of them not his fault. But that was basically the opening lap of the race. Of course, safety car came out. Lap 4, that safety car ends. Piastri overtakes Leclerc for P4 there, so good move there by Oscar. Lawson also, bit of a scruffy mistake there on the safety car restart. He spins at turn 1 trying to overtake Bottas. Looks like he just carried a little bit too much speed into turn 1, lost the rear because he was the driver on the inside and then spun, so it doesn't really make sense for him to have basically spun through contact with Bottas just because he was in the wrong position for that. So bit of a clumsy mistake there by Lawson that sends him to the back of the field. And I think also pretty harsh decision by the stewards, but they also gave him a 10-second penalty for that move on Bottas. Very reminiscent of Behrman and Colapinto, I think, from Brazil, where basically I think Colapinto, Behrman was the one who spun and then got the penalty for it. So a bit of a weird one there, again, by the stewards. Let's see, Alonso, really, really poor pace after the safety car came in. He dropped like 4 positions because he was in quite a good position, overtaken by Tsunoda, and I think overtaken by quite a few other drivers as well. Stroll decided to basically retire the car in the pits. I think he served his 10-second penalty doing a pit stop and then came and pitted the next lap. Lap 10, Magnussen overtakes Tsunoda for P9, Gasly overtakes Tsunoda, and Alonso overtakes Tsunoda as well. So Tsunoda as well, another one of those drivers who just, for whatever reason, not a lot of pace in the car. He had a pretty good starting position, but unfortunately for him, just kind of didn't have the pace in that first stint in the race and just kind of fell through the field. Hamilton given 5-second penalty for that false start, and that, of course, he had to serve during his pit stop. To make matters worse for Tsunoda, he is overtaken by Zhou. Although that being said, Sauber's definitely did have some good pace today. So lap 16 through I think lap 24, not a whole lot of action going on. But that being said, I did kind of take note of kind of the pace gaps between the different groups. So for example, the pace gap between Sainz and Perez on lap 16 was 4.5 seconds, but by lap 24, 8 laps later, that had grown to about 7.7 seconds. So about 0.4 of a second per lap. Perez was losing in clean air, so definitely, yeah, not great pace there. And for the Hamilton Magnussen as well, that was kind of the gap between end of the front runners and the midfield. And lap 16, Hamilton Magnussen gap 8.3 seconds, but on lap 24, it was up to 10.9. So Perez kind of falling further away from Sainz and all the drivers in front at a rate bigger than that pair was getting away from the midfield. So yeah, I think pace, I know some stuff happened to Perez later, not really his fault, but yeah, pace today was definitely not great. Lap 24, Piastri up to the back of Russell. Russell decides to start the pit cycle. Very, very slow pit stop for Russell, though 7-second stop, and he comes out in 11. So unfortunate for him, pitting onto the hard tires. Lap 28, both Mercedes complaining about not being able to turn the car, so I thought that was curious. Shows just how sensitive and how narrow the operating window is of this year's Mercedes. Lap 31, her tires don't seem to be particularly fast. Magnussen and Bottas at this point had already pitted as well, and they were just not gaining on the cars in the way that I thought they would. Bottas, I think, pitted quite early, and I expected him to be able to kind of perhaps get up pretty close to the back of Magnussen, given that they weren't that far apart when Bottas pitted. But yeah, the gap was quite big, so not sure if Bottas was just struggling or if it was just the hard tires were just really, really poor compared to the mediums. Anyway, lap 34, this is where things kind of completely go bonkers in this race. So a couple laps earlier, some piece of bodywork had basically fallen off Albon's car. And, of course, because the car is basically held together by duct tape at this point. And then a couple laps later, Bottas runs over that debris on the main straight. And right following that, I think 1 or 2 laps later, we had punctures for both Hamilton and for Sainz. Hamilton lost a lot more time with his puncture. Not exactly sure why. There was such a massive difference between the two of them in terms of how much time each of them lost. But both of them got punctures, presumably from that. We don't think, at this point, as of recording this video, we don't think it was because it was from the issues that Qatar had with tires last year and 2 years ago. We think it was because of running over that debris. So both, unfortunate for both Hamilton and Sainz, but that would bring out the safety car, basically screwing over all the drivers who had pitted, and also screws over Hamilton and Sainz as well. So Sainz had a 9.8 second stop, and Hamilton came out and he was a lap down. So, and of course, because safety car came out right in the pit window, it meant everyone else was going to pit right away. So lap 39, safety car ending, everyone's done their pit stop. Not a whole lot of changes from the order besides that, except for the drivers who had basically pitted before. They kind of lost out quite a bit at this point. But before the safety car can even really get anywhere, Perez gets stopped. So Perez basically spun final sector right before the safety car was going to come in, but from what I can tell right now, not his fault. Looks like the car just kind of gave up, drivetrain failed, and of course that is something that can cause those kinds of spins to happen. So unfortunate for Perez, looked like he could have been on for a really good points finish today, like P5, P6 maybe, and yeah, unfortunately the car just gives up. So unfortunate for Perez, really unfortunate for Perez last, second half of the season. The 2 races where he's done best, I would not necessarily best, but the 2 races where he's had the best opportunity to score points, Baku and Qatar. He basically, one of them he crashes with Sainz, and the other the car kind of just gives up on him. So yeah, unfortunate for there, but we do kind of have a bit of racing before the the VSC comes out. Norris tries to go for a move on Perez, not able to do so. Hulkenberg also ends up in the gravel. He spun on a curb, so just a clumsy mistake there by Hulkenberg at turn 10. RB decide to follow Williams' strategy and decide to do a double pit stop for soft tires. And this was a bit of a mistake. I think, yeah, soft tires definitely did not work very well. I think that's definitely going to be something that RB are going to be regretting. They saw Albon go on the soft tires, basically extrapolated his pace from a third of a lap and decided, yeah, let's go on those tires too. So yeah, a bit of a questionable strategy called by RB, but I guess they had to try something as they were outside of the points. Gasly as well in that restart locks up at turn 1, but I think he lost a position, but managed to get it back a bit later. So I think right before the safety car, basically before these punctures had happened and the piece had flown off of Albon's car, there was a yellow flag briefly. It was very, very brief. It was only for like a lap or two. And so there's yellow flags on the main straight. Verstappen lifted a bit, and because that's what you're supposed to do on the yellow flags, but Norris didn't. And Verstappen came on the radio right away saying, "Did Norris lift? He just gained on me from the straight." And stewards put it under investigation, and they actually did give Norris a penalty for this. And I think the penalty was quite harsh, given from what you've seen from these kinds of incidents. So Norris was given a 10-second stop-go penalty, which is actually the harshest penalty you can get. And given all given the circumstances, it was basically a piece of bodywork on the side of the track. I understand that for safety reasons, you obviously go more harsher with these penalties, but at the same time, it definitely feels a lot harsher than what the usual precedent for these kinds of penalties. I was expecting like a 10-second or a 5-second penalty, to be honest, but nonetheless, Norris gets a 10-second stop-go penalty, and he would have to serve that within 2 laps. Lap 43, Hamilton really, really struggling after the restart. He was basically overtaken by both Bottas and Tsunoda on the restart there. Lap 46, Hamilton noted for speeding in the pit lane. So again, a bit of a clumsy error by Hamilton there, and he was given a drive-through penalty for that, I believe. Norris pits for his pit stop, and he comes out behind Lawson, so well down the order and in last place, basically. Lap 47, yeah, that's where Hamilton serves his drive-through, and he was coming over the radio complaining. Oh yeah, I guess I should have gone to the next slide. I guess, there we go. You got your punctures there. It's a little bit late, but that's okay. Yeah, Hamilton drive-through lap, and he actually comes over the radio at that point and basically asks his race engineer if he can retire the car during the drive-through. So yeah, motivation definitely not very high for Hamilton. Kind of understandable given the recent run of form that he's been on. But realistically, this is his second last race for Mercedes, and you would like to see him go out on a high. The car definitely had the pace this week. I think Russell was a little bit unlucky. I think if things had gone a little bit differently, perhaps he could have gone P2. So, the pace is definitely there in the car. Just Hamilton's not able to extract it at the moment. Albon and Magnussen noted. Albon basically pushed Magnussen off track, overtaking him. Hamilton basically told to retire the car. I don't think he ends up retiring. I think he just continues on his way. Lap 40, although he keeps just going on his way. Lap 49, Magnussen overtakes Albon for P9. Bottas overtakes Albon. So Bottas at this point, I think 4 laps from the end in the points, but unfortunately for him, it would last about half a lap as Norris would overtake him the next lap for P10 for that final point position. Albon given 10-second penalty, but at this point he's already outside the points, so it doesn't really make a big difference after that soft tire strategy kind of failed. Russell noted for safety car infringement, he was given a 5-second penalty for that, but it did not affect his finishing position. So final lap, Verstappen takes the checkered flag, and for the first time this year, Sauber scores points in 8th place. So great result for Sauber. Really happy for Joe and for the team to finally just to break that duck and finally get some points. Let's take a look at our final finishing order. So it's a Verstappen win, second time in 3 races, but honestly, this is Verstappen's first win in dry conditions. I thought he did a really, really good job. Perhaps Red Bull are kind of starting to understand their issues, and the pace is kind of coming back to them, which I think is quite ominous for their rivals going into what is shaping up to be a very exciting 2025 season. So P2 Leclerc, P3 Piastri. I think decent drives for both of them. I think Leclerc will definitely be, and Ferrari will be very happy finishing ahead of the McLarens, and they actually gain points on them in the constructors this today. P4 Russell, P5 Gasly, excellent result for him, and that basically makes Alpine's spot in the constructors in P6 pretty secure at this point, unless Haas have an absolutely mammoth result in Abu Dhabi. P6 Sainz, 7th Alonso, 8th Zhou, 9th Magnussen, 10th Norris, 11th Bottas, 12th Hamilton, 13th Tsunoda, 14th Lawson, 15th Albon, a lap down. And your DNFs, Hulkenberg, Perez, Stroll, Colapinto, and Ocon. Now, taking a look at your drivers and your team manufacturers. Actually, is that qualifying? Why is the qualifying there? Okay, let's see how far. Okay, there we go. Okay, championship standings. So, Verstappen extends his lead 429 points. In terms of overall changes, I think now it's quite close between Norris and Leclerc, P2, P3. Let's see, Norris 349 points, Leclerc 8 points behind 348. So, still a pretty big gap. Realistically, you would need a Leclerc win and Norris finishing like 3rd or lower. That kind of result for Leclerc to get P2 in the championship. But that being said, definitely more realistic after, Norris's big mistake in the race. Let's see, further down the field, I think, let's see. So Piastri still 4th, Sainz P5, 6th Russell, 7th Hamilton, 8th Perez, 9th Alonso, 10th Hulkenberg. Gasly with that result today moves up to P11. He is now sitting on 36 points with Tsunoda. P drops to P12 on 30 points. Stroll 13th, 14th Ocon, 15th Magnussen, 16th Albon, 17th Ricciardo, 18th Behrman, 19th Colapinto, and then Zhou moves up to 20th with his 4 points, gets past Lawson, of course, has the tiebreaker because he has 1 P8, whereas for Lawson it's two separate P9 results. So yeah, Lawson drops down to P21, and then Sargent and Bottas round out the order with 0 points. In the Constructors' Championship, McLaren do not win the Constructors' Championship, so we are moving on to a final race championship decider in the Constructors. Of course, drivers, if it was the drivers, it would be a bit more exciting, I think, for the fans, but you still realistically very, very big tilt between McLaren and Ferrari. McLaren will be the favorites, 643 points. Let's see, how many is that? I can't even read. 640 points, and then Ferrari second, 619. So let's see, 21 points gap between the two of them. So realistically, it'll be a bit tough for Ferrari to get that constructors, but never say never in Formula One. Red Bull 3rd, 4th Mercedes, 5th Aston, 6th Alpine. They get past Haas, 59 points to 54. So 5 points, pretty big gap. So that's going to be like an 8th and a 9th place they would need in Abu Dhabi, with Alpine scoring no points. 8th RB, no points to them. I think that's a big kind of loss in terms of a missed opportunity for them. There's definitely quite a few points. You had Albon or Alonso P7, you had Zhou P8. There were definitely opportunities to get points there, and for whatever reason, RB, I think a combination of really poor pace. I think Lawson had that mistake. Without that, who knows where he ends up. And then of course you had the pretty bad tire decision at the end with the double stack for soft tires. So 46 points for them, and then 9th Williams and 10 Sauber, 4 points. I think they'll be satisfied with that, finally getting some points on the season. So yeah, there you go. There's my review of the 2024 Qatar Grand Prix. Pretty exciting race, a lot of action. Wheel-to-wheel racing itself, not fantastic, but a lot. I think because overtaking was so difficult, and realistically you just have that one spot in turn one. Drivers were really going for it, especially on the restarts. They were really going for moves and stuff, just because they knew that was so hard to overtake elsewise. So there you go. Thank you so much for watching, and that's all for my review for the 2024 Qatar Grand Prix. Goodbye.